Hey, crafty friends, thank you very much for joining me. This is Einat Kessler with Saturday Extravaganza, and today I'm playing with a canvas. However, I'm not going to work on the front, I'm going to work on the back and create sort of a shadow box from the canvas. So, this is a 5x7 canvas. As you can see, all the pins and the bare wood on the other side, and the center is canvas that is not even gessoed. So what I'm going to do first is cover all the pins that secure the fabric to the wood. I'm going to cover them with some tape so they won't be shown and tear anything. And once that's done, we can go ahead and gesso the entire thing, including all the wood, and the center, the sides are already gessoed, so you don't need to go over them as well. But you should do is all the inside as well, because I don't know if you know, but basically a canvas is like we have here is just a plain fabric, a plain canvas that is gessoed. So that's what we're doing on the back side as well, gessoing the fabric, the wood, and everything else. What I want to create is just a uniform base for the project. So I want everything to be nice and smooth and ready for everything that we're going to put on it. Dry it well and then do another coat of gesso. You need 2 coats to make sure everything is covered. So what I'm going to take now is some molding paste with a palette knife and just add it onto all the edges of the canvas. So this is going to create texture as well as hide the difference of heights between the wood and the canvas, which for me personally is very annoying. You can never hide that unless you put some really thick molding paste or something on top of it. So once you're done with that, while it's still wet, take a little bit of cheesecloth. I'm actually using a bandage that I got at the pharmacy. It has a really nice texture. It's very thin and I really like working with it. So just cut a few pieces and put them on the molding paste. Just tap very gently so it will stick, and that will give you extra texture and on your canvas, and it will be much more fun and interesting than just a plain canvas. So after you've done that, just make sure everything is really dry. It will take a while to dry it because the molding paste is going to be quite thick. So be patient, about 10 minutes at least. So I have here 2 pieces of chipboard. They're 1 inch wide, and I actually didn't measure the length of them. They're about 5-inch long. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape them together to create the roof of my house, because I'm going to create a house from this canvas. And what I want to do is attach them together in basically 90 degrees angle, and then attach it to the house. Now I'm using E6000. It's very strong industrial glue because I only have 2 points of attachment. I want it to be really strong, so I'm using a very strong glue so it won't come apart. So just put the glue on the corners of the canvas and attach it while it's at 90 degrees. I can actually see the cutting board under my craft sheet, so it's easy to line it up 90 degrees. So now I have a really thin cardstock that I'm going to use for the backing of the roof. See, it moves. It takes a while to dry. So just let it dry completely. I'm just gonna cut this and glue it to the back of the roof. It's very thin, you see. And this is just, I'm gonna do it with plain tacky glue. Don't need the E6000 for this. What is that? I'm gonna move that. Excuse me. And now gonna glue this down. Make sure it's all lining up exactly, and then let it dry for a few minutes so it won't move. And now we can gesso the roof as well, 2 coats, and then we'll be ready to start adding fun stuff to the house. So the gesso is basically a sort of a primer here and a sealer. So you would need to do that. This is how the house looked, 2 coats, and I also secured it with a little bit of tape at the back of the roof so it won't move while it was drying. Now I have here some acrylic paint. It's sort of a butterscotch color. And I'm going to cover the entire house with 2 coats of acrylic paint. This is going to be the base, because later on we're going to do all kinds of stuff to it, but I don't want the base to be white. So I'm going to paint everything in this butterscotch color. That will be my base. And then I'm going to make it a little bit dirty with all kinds of gelatos and other stuff. So you just keep on painting it. Make sure to go all the nooks and crannies and corners and all the texture and everything. Unless of course you want to keep it white, then you can skip this step. If you want the base color to be white, that's also possible. So make sure it's dry before we move on. This is how it looks after 2 coats. See all the texture? Nice. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in some gelatos to add a lot more color to the house. And now see, this is the colors I'm going to use, I think, at least part of them. So I'm going to start with a darker brown, and I'm just applying it on my craft sheet, and I'm just going to spritz it with water and use my finger to basically add color to the house and dirty. But as you can see, some of that molding paste and color was not completely dry, so I had to dry it and fix it. Don't worry about things like that, because these mistakes are completely reversible. You just fix them, dry everything, and move on. So I'm just using my finger to add all this brown, and I'm going to use this color next. It's sort of a mustardy yellow, and I'm just building layers of color on all the surface of the house. And if you don't want to do it, I like to do it with my finger because I have a lot more control over the paint goes. If you want to do it with a baby towel, you can do that, but that is might smear the rest of the color that is around, because it's a really big piece of, baby wipe. I like to use my fingers. So the teal now goes in. Now the more water you add, the more diluted the color will be, namely it's going to be lighter in shade. So I'm starting with a little bit of teal, and then I'm going to add a little bit darker teal, and you need to dry the layers of color in between, otherwise it will all become a really brown mud. See, now the teal is a bit brighter and stronger. And once I'm done with all the gelatos and the color, I'm just going to add a little stamping. It's a permanent brown ink with a little brick pattern stamp, and I'm just gonna add that here and there. It is a house after all, so put a little bricks on it. And now I want to add some more patterns, and not much of a texture, but texture to the eye, as I call it. Just pieces of tissue paper with some Mod Podge, and I'm just gonna add that so it will be a little bit more interesting to the eye and not too uniform. So just glue it down with some Mod Podge and seal it on top. And then of course don't forget to dry everything. So I'm using, this is like there's text pieces in there and some musical notes that I'm adding, just tier pieces. And the fun part is that because tissue paper is so thin, you can just add it on corners, it folds, it goes to wherever you tell it to go. So I really like adding that to projects. Sorry it's out of camera here. I'm just adding another piece. I'm not hiding anything. Just gonna move that in a sec so you can see. So I'm adding more pieces here, and I'm just gonna go over the tissue paper with the same colors of gelatos that I added to the house, just to blend them in terms of color. And now the fun part can start. We're gonna add so many flowers and metal embellishments and gears and findings and clock parts and stuff like that. But I'm gonna dye the colors, the flowers, and what I'm gonna do is use the same gelatos that I've used to add color to the house. I'm just gonna rub the flowers in them and use my fingers, and that will give the flowers the same colors as the house. Now basically I'm using white paper flowers, so it's very easy to dye. And I'm also using one fabric flower, which is also really easy. This is it's sort of a canvas flower. It's by Prima, I think. And I'm gonna use my finger just to add more and more color until I'm happy with the result. And for the smaller flower, I'm just gonna dip them in the gelatos, the wet gelatos, and then they're gonna take on whatever color is there. So now we can start. Of course you have to dry them first, and then we can start embellishing, which is the fun part, right? So you just the secret to embellishing is clusters. I don't know if I said that before, but you need to create clusters of embellishments, and a triangle shape is always preferred. Gives you good balance to the entire project. And I have here a really fun clock spring that I have, and it's gonna go and sit there in the roof. So basically, like I started saying, clusters of embellishments, and you just build on them. You add different sizes, different colors, different shapes of different types of embellishments to the clusters that you have. And I have a photo here of my kids that I want to add to, and I want to do that. I want them to be a little bit popping out. I don't want them just to be glued to the back of the canvas. So I'm gonna create a 3D backing to the photo by layering pieces of 3D foam tape one on top of the other, sort of building a small building of foam tape. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to glue them down because they're in the house, right? And then add more embellishments and clusters of embellishments like I explained before. Basically what I'm using are Prima flowers and all kinds of findings that I have, cogwheels and clock parts and metal embellishments here and there. And you just keep on building it, adding more and more flowers and embellishments, and you just do that until you're happy with the amount of embellishments that you have. I don't want the entire house covered, so I'm not going to cover everything. I'm just going to cover some parts because I want the texture of the house to show as well. So I'm just adding here and there, and I want the embellishments to have the same color scheme as the house, so I'm using the same colors of brown and teal. So this is how it looks so far, and now we need to do the roof. So in order to do the tiles of the roof, recognize this. This is an IKEA measuring tape. Every time I go to IKEA, it's very close to my house, I take 1 or 2 or 3 and I keep them, and then it's really fun to incorporate them in projects because it's like a ruler and it's just a piece of paper that you can attach to anything, or basically it's fun. So I'm just gluing down some of the part of the IKEA measuring tape in strips on the same piece of cardstock that I did the roof with some Mod Podge, and I'm gonna seal them. It's very important to seal them because we're gonna dye them with some gelatos as well. And actually this piece of cardstock is the backing of a paper stack that I had, so it's really useful. Never throw anything away. I always say you can always maximize your supplies by just reusing them for something else. So dry everything, and I'm just gonna wet my fingers and add the gelatos, just rubbing them in straight lines, horizontal and vertical straight lines. And after I'm using this, I'm treating all the strips as just one surface. And once I'm done with adding color, then I'm going to cut them into the pieces that I need to cover the roof. So again, the same colors of gelatos. It helps if your fingers are a little bit wet. You can do that with a baby wipe as well. And once you're happy with the result, then you can start cutting. First I'm cutting just along the strip lines. And the fun part is that since this is a measuring tape, there is no problem cutting all the tiles in the same size. Just look at the numbers on the measuring tape. So I'm just going to do this 1 inch wide, just measuring it to make sure, 1 inch wide, and we're just going to cut at the 1 inch line. Now I want the numbers to show, so I'm cutting on the 1/2 inch line. Let's say 13 and a half and then 14 and a half. Okay, hope that was clear. So the numbers 13 and 14 will show. So I'm just cutting all the strips to 1 inch 1 inch tiles. So isn't that a fun way to use your IKEA measuring tape? I think it's a really cool way. And I'm going to tile the roof now. See? Like that. First I'm just gonna bend all the tiles just a little tiny bit so they'll have a shape. I don't want them to be flat. So a very tiny angle, and we're gonna start with the bottom tile and build our way up. So you put your first tile, and then the next tile is gonna slightly overlap the first one. Sorry, it's out of camera again. And then you just keep on adding the tiles one on top of the other, only slightly overlapping, maybe half an inch overlapping. And once you're done with one side, you just do the other side. And I'm just using regular tacky glue. Don't need the E6000 for this. Just adding them one by one, and each one is different because remember when we added the color, we treated it as a surface, as a oops, that fell down. We treated it as one big surface and then we cut it, so each tile is unique. No one tile resembles the other. It's like fingerprints. The last one on top I'm just folding in half, and this is going to be the last one that goes on the top. Slightly shorter, but that's fine. Let it dry, and then your house is done. Just gonna take a big brush here to go over the edges and just have a nicer definition to the edges here and to the tiles and the roof. I really love these pens. It's really pretty and versatile. And I just got a whole bunch of new colors, so I'm really happy. Just the sides of the tiles, and I think that's about it. Look how pretty that came out. I really love this. So this is our house, our mixed media inverted canvas house. It's sort of a small shadow box, right? And I'm just gonna put it against a white background. See how pretty that is? I really like that. It turned out really nice. And maybe we'll check it up a little bit closer. See the roof? The tiles are really cool. And we got to use our IKEA measuring tape, which is super cool. And see how each tile is different? And this is just some up close stuff that you can see. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you were inspired and had as much fun as I did. Try this, it's a fun project. I'll see you all next Saturday on our Saturday Mixtravaganza tutorial. Bye.